We're so excited to be here tonight. Literally ran from the Coke Theater, rehearsed all day. Craig Hall just arrived 2 seconds ago. We're gearing up for our opening night on Tuesday. And then on the 28th, we have our gala. We have these 2 premieres for the Fashion Gala. It's the 10th anniversary of our Fashion Gala, so 10 amazing years of creative collaboration. It was a seed of Sarah Jessica Parker, our board member. Not only for a creative, exciting, friendship-making endeavor, but also a huge fundraising endeavor for us. We've raised over $24 million in 10 years, so who knew fashion would be so, fortifying to a ballet company? So I have some notes here, but I wanted to start with these amazing artists who I love, Craig Hall and Gianna Ryerson. Craig's not only one of my beloved partners that just made me such a happy ballerina, but he was a soloist with New York City Ballet and is a repertory director for Justin Peck's work. So he will be discussing the new Justin Peck piece called Solo. And Gianna Ryerson, who I've only recently gotten to know, but I adore her, is making she's 23, right? She's making her 3rd piece for the New York City Ballet, so that is remarkable. And we're very excited for both of these new works. So I wanted to ask you both, you have a mic. Do you have a mic, Gianna, too? Yeah? Yes. So you've both experienced the Fashion Gala in different ways, as a dancer, as a rep director, as a choreographer. Tell me about your experiences. What are the challenges? I know there's challenges. Sometimes it can be very stressful to collaborate and have limited time and multiple visions, but it's also very exhilarating. So tell me about some of your experiences.
I have to think back now to when I was a dancer. I have love-hate relationship with it, to be honest. I think that what's great is a lot of the I guess like the visions of the collaborators. Normally to have a ballet costume, a dance costume, it's just tights and a leotard or a form-fitting t-shirt, and to have these designers come in to create something that is so unorthodox, I think, in the dance world. I go back to a piece I danced, it was a Benjamin Millepied piece, and I had a bodysuit full of hundreds of pieces of plastic kind of placed on them. It was a beautiful costume, but it was a painful costume.
It was very cool looking, but it hurt.
Yeah,
it made the dancers bleed.
Yeah, I felt like a superhero, but I finished wounded. So it was, and I think that working with a designer's vision, sometimes it takes some getting used to. For me, it was the partnering a partner who had a costume that wasn't completely form-fitting or to the body or had a grip, and I was able to lift. So there was some adjusting that happened there. But from the front, watching as repertory director, it's fantastic. It's great looking at these visions and how it's incorporated on our stages with our dancers, and I think it takes you to another world completely, which a lot of times I would never think that way, but why would I? I'm not a designer. So I think from the audience perspective, it's a wonderful thing, and from the dancer's perspective, it just takes some time to get used to those new ideas and visions.
I think the challenges make us grow, and I think they make the designers grow. So I think, growth is not easy. It's hard to grow sometimes.
Very true. Yes.
But the innovation always raises the excitement of the audience and the collaborators. So I know, Gianna, you've worked with some really cool designers.
Yes, I've done 3 fall fashion galas at this point. So my first designer was Virgil Abloh of Off-White, and later the creative director of Louis Vuitton. The second designer I worked with is Alberta Ferretti, an Italian female designer. And now, currently, for this new work, I'm working with a young and up-and-coming designer named Alejandro Gomez Palomo. His line is called Palomo Spain. Yeah.
I'm going to get to why you chose that designer because he's very interesting. But I wanted to ask Craig a little bit about your work with Justin. You are Justin's right-hand man. You set and stage his work not only at New York City Ballet primarily, but all over the world. And how many years have you been working with Justin? And I think you even danced in a few of his ballets.
I did, yeah. I started working with Justin as his assistant in 2015, the year before I retired. And the first piece that I worked on with him, I danced in. I did a leading role, and I had a taste of teaching this ballet after knowing one section that was created on me. So it's been now, what is that, 8 years, 7, 8 years, and it's interesting to see how he's grown as an artist. And at first we were colleagues, and then he became...
You shared a soloist dressing room, I think, probably.
We did, yeah. Yes.
And creating at the same time.
Yeah, so, and the very first section of Year of the Rabbit ballet that I worked on, the premiere happened when we were still dancing together. We saw a section of it, and this was my first introduction of him as a choreographer, and I was blown away by this young dancer's vision and what he could put together. And I was lucky enough to dance in 2 of his works, Rodeo and Year of the Rabbit. And what I love about him is just the way that he creates a space for the dancers, a sense of community. I think there's something very similar to what I feel when I danced and watched a lot of Robin's ballets, is he will take a group of people, and it doesn't really matter that there's an audience out there. I think that what's important is the connection between the artists on stage, and if there are others watching, that's an added bonus, but that's not the main objective. It is just creating a space where you feel comfortable, where you can play, where you can experiment, and just live in this perfect world.
There's always a team, he always has a team circle. Like I either see it before the ballet, like they're in this huddle, or after the ballet. So he has his group of dancers that he loves to work with, and he's drawn to a certain kind of dancer. Can you explain what that kind of dancer is? I feel like I can see it, and maybe many of you can see it as well when you watch his ballets, but what do you think it is when he brings in a dancer to his work?
Well, I think he likes dancers that can kind of make fun of themselves in a way. I think a lot of times you go in and you work with the choreographer and you're waiting to be told what to do. And I think that he has an idea, he has a sketch, but he loves when someone can riff with him. It's almost like jazz in a way, where you hear this rhythm or you see this movement and you interpret it this way and you kind of go with it. And as long as you realize that he might not want to go that far in that direction, but he wants you to go somewhere. And all the dancers that I think that he's drawn to are the ones who enjoy to play really.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is a one-of-a-kind type of dancer. So towards the end of my career, I know that Taylor Stanley was one of the dancers that he was really drawn to, and Taylor would do this amazing movement, and the quality was so beautiful, and you would have 5 or 6 dancers behind him trying to copy that, and we looked really sad doing that, because just the way that he moves and works. But everyone is a character. I think that he tries not to have use dancers that move exactly the same or think exactly the same. It's an eclectic group of misfits in a way.
Strong individual voices is what I see as well. Yeah. And he's one of the first choreographers. Well, he is the first choreographer at New York City Ballet to really go gender neutral with his choreography. So he's made dances that both male, female, non-binary people can do anything. He loves to be able to mix and match different bodies and styles into the same choreography. So I know that we'll get to this one, and I have a question about this coming up, but this piece solo, to the music of Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings, and Justin's designer is Raf Simmons, a Dutch or Belgian designer, so they've worked together before. But tell me about this piece solo. It was created just after the pandemic for our virtual spring gala. Sofia Coppola filmed it, but it's going to have its live premiere on our stage on the 28th. So tell me a little bit about this piece, how it came to be, why he chose this very somber, sad, heartbreaking music. It's still American, but there's something very different about it.
Well, the process was unlike any other process that we've had, because our theater and everything was shut down at the time. So coming in, we could only work on the stage, and we usually have a process in the studio where you have a mirror and you can use that as a tool to see, your lines and if things are working in the way where you feel comfortable. But we didn't have that this time, and the entire process was done on the stage, and we had to, Anthony, who's dancing it, he felt the movement, but also used us as the mirror, which was interesting. And it was great to be back in the theater, but it was also a little heartbreaking to being in an empty theater. And we love being on stage and having the space to perform, but it almost doesn't, it's not that it doesn't matter. I think it's extremely special and important when it's full of bodies and souls and people. And so we had a taste of being there, and we were in this shell, this space, creating, and Anthony is one of Justin's favorite dancers to work with. And he started just by talking about some of Anthony's favorite solos that he's danced throughout his career. So Rubies and Baiser de la Fée and Agon. And so he started to go through these movements and what felt good, and he started to build from just playing around with those actual solos. But he and Sarah
Mearns will also be making a debut in the solo a little later in the season. So you'll see Anthony, one performance, and another performance you'll see Sarah Mearns, two completely different dancers.
But they're both in their prime, at their peak of their physicality right now. And he wanted to create something, especially for Anthony at the time, just a piece for him to almost challenge him to not go to the lengths or the borders of his technical excellence. This is almost a very internal piece. It is a dancer that is so comfortable with their bodies, with their technique, with their plie, actually, the bend in their legs and how they use their feet. Justin always says he wants the dancer to be fluent in their plie and fluent in their footwork, or fluent in their releve too, just the rise and fall. And so it reminds me a little bit of, and just go with me.
Yeah, we'll go with you.
Yeah, like Afternoon of a Faun, where you have an artist that is in a studio working, and no one else is out there, but you are really reflecting on your time as a dancer, if that's in the studio, if that's on stage, but your personal relationship really to the space. And I think that they started to play with that, and the music is this iconic piece. It's almost cliche in a way too, because it's been used so much, and when you think of it, if it were a ballet, it would have a full group of artists on the stage, I think, or it would be very dramatic. Yeah. And it is almost the complete opposite. The drama's internal, or the drama is with the audience, what you feel as you watch it. There's something kind of melancholic about it, but I don't think that it's sad. I don't feel that his movement is sad with it, but it is two dancers or solo when you watch it of just having a conversation with themselves.
I want to ask Craig a a little bit about Justin and Anthony's relationship as choreographer and muse. He does seem to be a muse to Justin. They were at school together. They were in the ballet class at SAB together. And I think Anthony was in Justin's very first piece in a studio workshop. So I remember him lifting Anthony up, and we were all like, "Oh my gosh, look at this guy." So tell us a little bit of what's super special about Anthony
And Anthony,
from the inside.
yeah, I love watching Anthony dance. I feel that he is, it's almost like he starts with thread and he spins gold, you know? It's like, it's beautiful watching him, and I know whenever we see him move, there's really no beginning and no end. It's just a constant, like, there's this motion that's going, and then he ends on like a dime. He spins and he stops, and the technique is so pure. And we sit in the front and we watch, and we're both like drooling over just the beauty of his movement and his dance. And so he's used him quite a few times.
They lift each other up. He lifts up Justin's work, and Justin lifts him up. So I think that's just those are the best relationships, artist and dancer. I don't know if Anthony's ready to come out yet, but yay! Thank you, Anthony. So Anthony, this is a 9-minute solo, and
Yes.
and you really cover space in lots of different ways, adagio and allegro. What are some of the particular challenges about this particular work?
Well, I think like Craig was saying earlier about the plie and trying to make that seamless is like the muscles in your feet cramp so quickly from trying to really control and feel the floor and not have any sudden hops with your feet. So my feet cramp immediately.
What did it feel like to make the work and bring it to life right after the pandemic, after we've had a year out of dancing? I remember Justin, I feel like I remember him on a call saying, during COVID, I feel so bad for dancers like Anthony. They're at their prime and they just aren't able to do what they do. So like a dancer losing a year of their career when you're at your prime. I think Justin, in my vision of this piece, is sort of an elegy for those dancers who lost that very valuable time in their career. What did it feel like for you?
Yeah, I mean, like Craig said, it sort of started as going through the rep that I've done and some of my favorite roles and like trying to revisit them. And I think the first original idea was sort of this like reawakening, which is why the first step, he said, it's sort of like you're getting out of bed, you know, because we hadn't danced in a year. So
Hibernation.
yes,
Yeah.
so I think it was sort of that idea of revisiting your rep and like trying to like find it again and how you move through it in a different way. And I keep joking with Sarah that I say she should put some diamonds in it or a Swan Lake or something.
Have you seen what Sarah does?
I have. It's
Yeah.
it's different and it's super effective. I might steal some things.
I know she's excited about it. You might steal some things. Very fancy. Does Justin, in that way, allow you to collaborate with him when you guys work together?
I think. Well, for me, I feel like the rehearsal process. I try to be pretty true to his words and all the things, and then I feel like when it comes to performance, he kind of just trusts me and he says, "Okay, do what you want with it," you know, in a way that, like you were saying earlier, he has this group of dancers that he just sort of trusts their artistic choices when it comes to the live theater. So for me, I rehearse it, try to do it exactly as he likes, and then in live performance, if something happens, I do something else that I feel like he would appreciate.
And how has usually when we do a work, when you did it a year ago, it's one thing, and then a year later you come back to it and it's a whole other thing. So how have the steps evolved? Has your take on the piece changed? Has anything
I mean,
blossomed in a different way?
That's like an interesting question since we've never done this from beginning to end, because it was on film, so we would do something and then we'd say cut, and go
Forgot
back
about
and
that
do it
part.
again.
Get your tickets now. Yeah.
So I don't really know exactly like where this begins. This is the beginning of it, really, in terms of experiencing it live and in person. But I will say, like, revisiting it, he seems to want to strip away more, like less and less and less. So that's really just like the person, and you don't see too much going on.
Yeah, the essence of Anthony.
Yeah.
Ooh. Thank you, Anthony. That was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're going to move on to Gianna Ryerson. So you have some similarities to Justin. You went to School of American Ballet. You started choreographing at age 15 or 16. I think he was similar to that. He choreographed as a student at SAB. He's choreographing on Anthony, his old classmate. You tend to sometimes gravitate to your old classmates that are now in New York City Ballet. What is it about choreography itself that drives you, that excites you? What is it about the craft of choreography that makes you a full-time choreographer right now?
That's kind of a loaded question, but I think I've always kind of, throughout my dance career, struggled with my relationship with myself as a professional dancer, and I always knew I had this musical inclination inside me and a creative inclination inside me that just wasn't really being filled as a dancer, as somebody, being taken in the choreography and trying to execute somebody else's choreography. In choreography, the music for me comes first, and it's always come first. And it's interesting, with an event like the Fall Fashion Gala, my process is forced to change a little bit. In this process, in this new work in particular, we have some very interesting, shapes in the work and in the designs that have kind of informed the movement quality. The designer has taken a lot of risk in exaggerating parts of the body, making these angular shapes. There are some big shoulders and big hips and, boxes around the waist. And, all of those things had to be taken into account while making this piece. So in a way, the movement quality was actually heavily informed by, the shapes that I was working with, where, in my normal process, the music is, the most important thing.
So your composer is Solange Knowles, Beyonce's sister. So we're super excited that she's come on board. I know she wanted to work with New York City Ballet, and I know you probably came into this commission with different ideas, but when Solange was brought to your attention, how did things shift? I didn't think you were going to go with Solange. I wasn't sure you were going to be inspired, but you were immediately, love at first Zoom, I think.
Yeah, it was really an immediate connection that we had. I think we have a similar philosophy in the way that we create. The most important thing, I think, we immediately connected on our love for jazz music. And, she really wants to kind of push this musical boundary and try things that are more experimental and maybe are kind of more of a challenge to the listener rather than a nice, pretty piece of music. And I was really interested in that. One of the words that I used in the beginning of kind of trying to piece all of this event together, the 10th anniversary of the Fall Fashion Gala, and, it just had to be in my mind really powerful. I use the word showstopper, and she said, we can do that with jazz music. We can push that. We can, we're using about 75% of the orchestra. So, we have a lot of instruments going on. There's a lot going on in the music. But what I kind of love about it is this notion of, she kind of created it as if it was her stream of consciousness. It's not necessarily a piece that, starts and comes back full circle. It kind of just goes on, and there's peaks and valleys, and I love that in music. I love, something that's nuanced and keeps you on your toes as an audience member. So she definitely executed that, and the music, I keep talking about the music, but unfortunately, she feels very strongly about having the music be premiered with the live orchestra. So for the excerpt tonight, I will be counting the work.
It'll still be amazing.
We want to keep the composition, we want to keep the integrity for her and keep it a secret for now. But yeah, she's great. I have no complaints. It's been a really amazing.
When are you going to hear the orchestra play it for the first time? Because we haven't heard that yet.
And that's always the challenge with these types of things. I'm certainly not the one transcribing, the work, and there's so much that goes into translating, a single person's vision to an entire orchestra of people. So I am expecting a lot of things that are different, but I think that is something that is to be expected, I guess, in a situation like this. And there's also something exciting about that, I think, for the dancers as well, to kind of rehear and figure something new out within what they're doing. I think could actually play really well with a piece of music like this that's so experimental and so, free jazz and yeah.
I've watched it a couple of times, and I really feel that you bring the music from the recorded little MIDI to life. It feels like your dancers are they're a little orchestra, and they become the sounds in the movement that you've created. When I watched the piece a few times, and I loved it, it had a real American jazz vibe, just like the music. It reminded me of Opus Jazz, Interplay, very American New York City Ballet style, lots of speed, lots of balletic technique in it as well. Was it just the music that inspired you? Was it your training, or did you have some kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to explain, being that we've just watched this in silence. Yeah. But this piece to me is my direct translation of the music, and it always comes first, like I always say. But like I said before too, there's so many layers of collaborations happening in this particular piece. So I think the inspiration was pulled a lot from the costumes as well. And this time around, I think I am really trying my best to embrace this fashion. I think my first two commissions, I really pushed my designers to make ballet clothes, like tutus and beautiful, like Grecian, chiffon dresses and stuff like that. And I think I'm just in a point in my life where I want to take a bit more of a risk and push those things a little bit more. and I found the right designer to do that for sure.
How did you come across this designer? I know you were really drawn to his work, and what is it about him?
So I actually just stumbled upon his work. I was doing some research actually for the gala, and I saw a collection he did for, it was in Vogue for spring of 2022, where, and these silhouettes and these designs were actually heavily inspired by this collection of his. He took the classic suit and made it something completely new. He, had these tailored suit pants that were actually shorts and were like out to here. And, there were all of these angular shapes, and it felt very deconstructed. And there was something about it that just really intrigued me. I think the shapes mostly, and how that would translate on stage. And he wanted to push it a step further, and cover them from head to toe in crystals. So, and when I say head to toe, I mean like they are covered from head to toe in crystals. So it's kind of a spectacle, in itself. And I think, with the music and the costumes and everything, it's kind of just what I was looking for in this particular time in my life. So
I find you very courageous to be 18 years old and making your first ballet at New York City Ballet like you did in 2017, and now a similar level of courage. So go, girl. Go, girl. Yeah. So I was going to bring Harrison Cole out, who has done quite a bit of work with Justin Peck and now Gianna. You're, in my mind, quintessentially an American dancer at like the highest level. And both of these artists have been drawn to you over time. Justin especially, you were in West Side Story, the film, and just about every ballet he does. And what is it about American dancing that you have? What's your secret?
I think growing up in New York had a huge
Yeah.
impact on me.
Yeah.
I think this is the epicenter of a lot of things that make America great, and that's the diversity, and it's the range of arts that I'm exposed to since I was a kid. I was exposed to jazz as a kid, and you were talking about Justin Peck's process being sort of like riffing in jazz, and I think that's kind of probably at the core of my process with choreographers, because it's an exchange, and when people are in a jazz band, I was in a jazz band in middle school and high school, and you not only have a moment to shine in your solo, but you're exchanging through the like overarching chart or structure of the music. You're soloing within a structure. So I find that in dancing these pieces by Gianna and Justin, that I'm able to find more of my voice and more of who I am as an artist and as a person through their structure, which they're giving me. And I think that structure also comes from incredibly naturally a sensitivity to music, which I think also comes from being part of the New York City Ballet, School of American Ballet community. And I think that's what makes the process for the company members with these two choreographers so extremely valuable, because you have that nuanced sensitivity to music.
We have a huge vault of masterpieces in our repertory, but there's something about being choreographed on that is unmatched. I mean, why is that so important as an artist? I mean, it's kind of everything.
We have so much choreography, like you said, and I've been watching videos of these pieces since I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, and you have an image of what you may think you're supposed to look like. And up until I was like 17, 18 years old, I realized I was copying people, mimicking people. You mimic your teachers. You don't necessarily know what you are bringing to the table truly, other than I can point my feet like this, I can turn my foot out like that, and I can dance on the music or try to nail a pirouette. But when you have the opportunity to be choreographed on, what's special about it is that's when you find out what you can bring. And it makes it very challenging at times because sometimes you're like, you question it. You're like, is this right? Because you're not seeing a version before you. And that's when the trust with the choreographer and the room and the other dancers comes into play, because you're exposing yourself, you're vulnerable in that moment when you're creating. Both the choreographer and the dancer are vulnerable because you're like, it's never been done before. So I think it's just so exciting for artists to be challenged that way. In our environment, we still have to bring yourself into these masterworks that have been done before. You're still reinterpreting them and making them fresh every time a new cast goes on. And there's room and space for that, but when you're creating new choreography, and that's at the heart of New York City Ballet's goal, I think that's what really pushes each artist to shine even greater in those masterworks too, because then they have a deeper sense of self.
It's like tapping a maple tree. It's like they get your syrup, and then your syrup goes into the next other work. Thank you, Harrison. Thank you, Gianna. Thank you, Craig. Please come and see this program. This program happens on September 28th. I think it's sold out, though. But then it happens again 5 more times. I think it happens on, I have the dates right here. Happens on October the 1st, twice on October the 8th, on October 11th, and October 16th. I'm very, very excited about what you're going to see on that program. I hope you do come and see it. And thank you to the beautiful dancers, and have a wonderful night.